This first slide shows the names of the principal investigator, Cheryl Kamei-Ihanen, who is a professor at California State University in Los Angeles. Dr. Tessa McCarthy is also mentioned on this slide. She is at the University of Pittsburgh, which is actually where I live in Pittsburgh, not Carolina. I don't really know where that came from. That is just very strange. And and Tessa is kind of taking the lead in looking at the results of the pilot study that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm an educational consultant and instructor. I do a lot of different projects, including this one. This is the iBraille Challenge is actually a large team of people. In fact, Dr. Kay Holbrook is also part of this team. So there's a lot of people actually who are involved in this project. And I have the privilege of speaking about just a tiny portion of this project here today. I also happen to be the immediate past chair of the Braille Authority of North America, but that has nothing to do with this project at all. But my interest is in Braille and Braille reading, and so I thought I'd mention the Bannock connection as well. So the Braille Challenge itself is an event that is sponsored by the Braille Institute, which is in Los Angeles, California. And it's an event that is sponsored every year in the United States and in Canada. It's a paper and pencil, or paper and Brailler, I guess, a set of activities for children in 1st through 12th grades. And the event is very popular in the United States, and there was a lot of call from teachers and parents to have additional practice activities. And that kind of led to the development of this iBraille Challenge app. So could we develop some activities that could be used with an iPad and refreshable Braille display that would mirror the kinds of activities that were done in the paper Braille Challenge? So the purpose of this iBraille Challenge is to improve literacy and technology skills for students who read Braille. So on the next slide, I talked just a little bit about the Braille Challenge itself and how the iBraille Challenge mirrors this. But really what you need to know is that there are 5 different levels of activities, what we call apprentice level for 1st and 2nd graders, freshman level for 3rd to 4th graders, the sophomore level for 5th to 6th graders, what we call junior varsity for 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, and varsity for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And so the activities that are done in the app mirror these same activities. So again, overarching, what we wanted to do with this project was increase not just the Braille literacy skills, but also technology skills through the dissemination of this app using a mainstream device. So it is on the iPad, and students pair any one of the 40 or so Braille displays that happen to work with an iPad using VoiceOver to make the different games run. The next slide just shows an overview of the app structure. There's a login page that features these colorful characters that they're the little robots that have little names, and they each have a Braille cell, Braille letter on them. And then there's also a student roster page as well, where teachers can add students who are Braille readers to their roster and actually keep information about student levels on the app itself. So there are 2 figures shown on this page, just showing how you log in and how you can add your students. When you have the students added in, you can actually add things like their photographs and things. The point was since the majority of students in the United States are mainstreamed into the neighborhood schools, to develop an app that was creative and colorful and attractive for the students who were in their neighborhood schools, but also completely accessible. The next slide just shows the overview of the app structure. Again, there's 2 sections. There's a reading section and a writing a reading center and a writing center. And all I'm going to talk about today right now is actually the reading center and the results of the pilot of this. Since this is a federally funded project, it's over 5 years. We are currently doing the pilot for the writing center, and we are just now starting to look at the results of the pilot for the reading center. But the reading center games have reading placement tests, I guess you could call them. They're passages that the teacher can give to see what approximate grade level the student is functioning. And then there's some extra challenge passages for students to do. That again kind of mirror the kinds of things that they do during the actual Braille Challenge event. Then there are additional activities, reading activities, one called Braille Hunt, which is an activity where the students track across the Braille display and they're looking for target letters. And when they find the target letters, they hit the router key underneath that letter and enter, and the app actually times them, and they get harder as they go along. So they start with the letters of the alphabet, and for each level of the app, the activities get more difficult. And the children enjoy that very much. Actually, so do the blind adults who have tried that. They've actually enjoyed that very much. So Braille Hunt is like a tracking game to increase hand movements and reading speed on the refreshable Braille display. One called Deduction Detective is a reading comprehension game where they have to read a passage and find the clues to answer the questions. So they have to be a detective to answer the questions, some of which are literal and some of which are inferential. And the app actually keeps track of the questions that the students answer correctly or incorrectly. And then that can also help the teacher look for patterns. Are students having more difficulty making inferences, or are they having difficulty or having to go back and look at the passage to answer questions? Which word was actually not included in the pilot, but it's a vocabulary game. And they read a passage and they answer questions about vocabulary again, these are all by grade level, or the 5 levels that I talked about, apprentice and the other 4. And then there's also a repeated reading activity where the students can kind of time themselves and beat their speed in reading. The writing center, as I said, is still being built, but there are also writing placement games. There's a game called Blinking Braille where they and this is, as I said, what's being piloted right now, but where the word blinks on with the refreshable Braille display and disappears, and then they have to write it in and to see if they actually can spell it correctly and remember it. Braille Scramble is an anagram game where they're given a word and then they have to come up with as many words as they can find by scrambling the letters, and there's also a repeated writing. But what I'm going to talk today is just about some preliminary results of the Reading Center pilot. The next slide talks about the implementation plan, and really all I want to point out, since this is federally funded, you can imagine there's a lot of paperwork and documentation that goes with it, and so there's quite a bit that goes into the implementation plan. But what I really wanted to point out was that we're in the pilot test phase with the Reading Center and now with the Writing Center, and we did these intervention studies that were 16-week interventions using the app to see if there were increases in teacher skills as well as student skills, based on pre and post tests. There was also an 8-week parent study that went over the summer that I'll just talk very, very briefly about. Okay, so the next slide talks about the training that was done for the pilot study. And prior to the beginning of this study, when we were recruiting the teachers who would participate with their students, there was quite a bit of training that was done. There were 15 different trainings and something called Power Hours, which I think was a very creative name, where they had the teachers on the phone and were providing information for them about how to use the app, how to go into the iPad and set the settings on VoiceOver so that they would work with the refreshable display, how to pair the display via Bluetooth, and then how to use the Braille display to navigate through the game. And there were quite a bit of time was spent, approximately 80 hours committed to preparing teachers to begin the intervention. And there was a lot of readiness skills needed to get the teachers comfortable with voiceover and changing the settings for the different games and things, and also using it with their particular refreshable Braille display. On the next slide, I go on to talk more about the training that was provided. And the training was important because we wanted to have some fidelity between the teachers in the use of the app so that we would have better data at the end, that people were using the app approximately the same way with their students and that they felt comfortable with it. And we also provided some additional support materials such as an instructional toolkit with videos and teacher tips and other things to provide teachers with the support they needed to have the to participate. Okay, so now some just preliminary data, and Tessa wanted me to tell everybody that she is still wading through the mountain of data from the pilot, and so what I'm showing you today is just some very, very preliminary things. And the first is from what they call the GAPRA measures, and I actually don't know what GPRA stands for, but I do know that the Office of Special Education Projects, OSEP, which is part of the U.S. Department of Education that provided the funding, requires these GAPRA measures. And these are qualitative questions that have to do with satisfaction and overall attitudes towards the project. 96% of the participants responded that they agreed or strongly agreed that the app covered important skills for improving Braille literacy. 97% of the participants said that they agreed or strongly agreed that the app was motivational for students. And 96% agreed or strongly agreed that the app was of high quality. So, phew, good. We were very happy that the qualitative measures were so positive. All right, then we have some results from the teachers who participated, and what we were really looking at was teacher comfort and skill level in actually using the technology effectively with their students and teaching it. And so the teachers who participated did have a statistically significant positive difference in their use of voiceover and refreshable Braille display skills from the beginning to the end of the project. So it's a moderate effect, but that's pretty good considering it was a 16-week intervention. So it was like a semester, which is not. We were, again, very pleased that the teachers rated their own skills and were able to demonstrate skills that were statistically significantly positive in use of the technology. Okay, then we get into some of the preliminary student skill results. And I've been listening to the other sessions, and I just think whoever put together this conference did such a beautiful job of grouping these presentations together, because one of the things I really did want to talk about was fluency. So we're still analyzing the data on these, so I want to be a little cautious because we haven't actually disaggregated things by grade level or by level of the app, but I can tell you some overall trends. And that is that the students did make statistically significant gains in both silent and oral reading as measured in words per minute by using this app for this 16-week period. I do want to mention, though, that the mean reading speed was about 43 words per minute, increasing to 46.5 words per minute or so over this time for silent reading, 45 words per minute to about 48 words per minute for the oral reading. So it was, again, statistically significant, but this is across all grade levels. We don't have that fine-grained information yet. What was interesting that we found was that after about fourth grade, the reading speed kind of leveled off, and that the students in the higher grades had similar reading speeds as those of the younger students, which I think is very interesting. Another preliminary result is that students became more accurate in their Braille reading. So they had a statistically significant reduction in miscues. In other words, misreading words that were in the app, so that they increased in their accuracy. So not just their fluency, but also accuracy, which is good. For comprehension, the students started out pretty strongly in comprehension. That was a strength. So there wasn't as much of a change from the beginning to the end, but there was a positive trend for increases in comprehension for both silent and oral reading. Briefly, all I'll say about the 8-week period in the summer when the app and equipment was given to parents was that over that very short intervention time of 8 weeks, the most interesting result was that the parents themselves displayed much greater facility in using the equipment and using the refreshable Braille displays. And the parents had a greater comfort level and more skills in actually able to use the refreshable Braille display with the iPad. So that was also good to be able to show. All right, so there were a few challenges, and one is in app development, certainly, and I'd love to talk to more people about if anyone else has worked on developing apps for the iPad using VoiceOver and some of the issues that were related to development of this project. Recruitment is always an issue as well. We have, a low incidence disability population and spread across a wide geographic area, and also trying to keep that retention for all kinds of reasons. I mean, it's during the school year, people are busy, kids are in lots of activities, the teachers get busy, so trying to keep people in the study for the period of 16 weeks was another issue. So the lessons learned that I would say is if anybody would like to talk to me or anybody who's on the team about working with VoiceOver and developing apps for the iPad with refreshable Braille, we would love to hear that. We did a lot of trial and error over the years, and also trying to find more students and recruit more students. The other, I think, implication that's very interesting has to do with refreshable Braille displays, because what we found, at least in this study, is that teachers needed a lot of support, and so did the students. Since refreshable Braille displays are used for many high-stakes tests, I think sometimes we make assumptions about our students' abilities to use the displays very efficiently and navigating well. But user access is certainly dependent on skill. And in looking back in the literature, I think we've been talking about teacher skill for technology since the 90s. So I think that's still an area that we need some additional work on, because to become proficient users of refreshable Braille displays and technology so that we can teach our students. And the other thing that I wanted to say as well is that in this study, generally speaking, the Braille readers were read very, very slowly. And so I think the sessions that we've been talking about have been so interesting as far as reading speed. What are the implications of that? Are students using tools efficiently and effectively as they can? I wonder, this is my personal wonder, about after a certain period when students, are they relying less on their Braille skills and more on auditory skills to supplement? And is that one reason, perhaps, I don't know, that the reading fluency did not increase over time? So those are the kinds of things that I really wonder about, and I would love to talk to some of you all about that. And I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done about the use of refreshable Braille displays, as well as the use of tools in general. And also, the other implication is that there's a lot more training that's needed for teachers themselves as far as the reading skills involved. Are they able to make effective decisions based on data that's collected? we got some very good feedback from the people who were using the app, saying it was very motivating, it increased Braille skills. There was another teacher who said the involvement with the app was invaluable, and it took us to another level of the use of the device. And one teacher said it became very popular at school, and the students were jealous. One of the students learned Braille so they could play with the app. And was upset he wasn't included in the study. Kids are asking to stay after school to play, to read on the iPad, and they're asking the teacher if they can stay after school. So we got a lot of positive feedback from people about the project. So if you have more feedback or questions, please contact Cheryl Kamei Hannon, and I can give you all of the contact information that's on this slide, or you can come and see me. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And can you hear me? Yes. You managed to squeeze a lot of information into this short time. And there's time for one question. So I can see
Hi, Sky.
A woman in the back. Can you get the microphone?
Can you name the test that you use to measure reading speed, please?
The test that we use to measure reading speed, we did it by words per minute. The app itself was designed to, it calculated words per minute for us. So we had the number of words for each passage, and then there's a built-in timer into VoiceOver can do that for you, and so it was built into the app that it would actually time the students.
And were the words contracted, or were they simple three-letter words?
They were. We used contracted Braille. We also had the very interesting issue of the fact that the United States changed from English Braille American Edition to Unified English Braille in the middle of the study, and so that was interesting. But I believe that everyone did this with Unified English Braille, and it was contracted. And the passages, when we developed the app, we tried to follow some sort of protocol for how to make an estimation for grade level. I have a lot I could say about that, but
we have
in
a
the interest of
lunch
time,
hour.
That's right.
Where you can talk to Francis. Thank you very much.
Thank you.